Welcome everyone. My name is Catherine. Today I'll be showing records from 1981 and 1982, and I've started a playlist of these albums I haven't shown yet. So the first album I'm going to show is Journey's Escape. This is their 7th studio album, and it was released July 17th of 1981, and it's on the Columbia label. And I'll show you the record. The label in the middle has some neat artwork as well. So this album reached #1 on the American Billboard Album 200 chart. And it became Journey's best-selling album. It sold diamond, 10 million copies. And it had some really great four chart-topping singles. So they are as follows. #1 is Who's Crying Now? It was released July 9th of 1981, and it reached #4. #2, Don't Stop Believing, October 19th of 1981. It reached #9. #3, Open Arms, January 8th of 1982. It reached the #2 spot. 4th, Still They Ride, May of 82, and it reached #19. And a 5th song, it wasn't a single, Stone in Love. It was played by DJs, and it became a rock radio staple. And this is the first album to have keyboardist Jonathan Cain. Now I have this record for the singles. My favorite songs are Who's Crying Now, Don't Stop Believing, and I like the piano introduction on Open Arms. The second album I'll show is Men at Work, Business as Usual, their debut album. It was released November 9th, 1981 in Australia and April of 1982 in the United States, and it's on the Columbia label. And it spent 9 weeks at the top of the Australian charts from December 81 through March of 82. And the Australian version had the black and white cover design, whereas the one I have in the United States has a yellow and black design. And this album was successful internationally. Here in America, it spent 15 weeks in the #1 spot on the Billboard 200 album chart from late 82 to early 83. And in the UK, it spent 5 weeks in the #1 spot in early 1983. And it's the highest selling Australian album in the early 80s. 6 million copies were sent to the United States. And the singles on here, Who Can It Be Now is the first single, and this is my favorite song on the album. #2 was Down Under. This reached #1 on the Billboard Hot 100 for 4 non-consecutive weeks. And the third single is Be Good Johnny. Now, Men at Work, Business as Usual won a Grammy Award in 1983 for Best New Artist. And this song, Down Under, has endured to this day. It is perceived as a patriotic song in Australia, and Down Under is often played at sporting events. And I think the song Down Under has a very memorable verses for the 80s decade. It goes, buying bread from a man in Brussels. He was 6'4" and full of muscles. I said, do you speak my language? He just smiled and gave me a Vegemite sandwich. Yes, I learned what Vegemite was from this record when I was 13. And I'll show you the record on the Columbia label. The third record I'm going to show, and the last, is Toto 4. It's their 4th studio album, and it has the 4 rings on the cover to indicate that. The singles on this record, our first one is Rosanna, which was released March 31st of 1982. This song reached number 2 for 5 weeks on the Billboard Hot 100. Number 2 is Africa. This was first released in Europe in June of 1982. And in America, it was released later as the 3rd single, October of 1982. So the 3rd single in the United States was Make Believe, July of 1982. And the 4th single was I Won't Hold You Back, March of 1983. And it reached number 10. And this is one of my favorite ballads from the 80s. I think it's absolutely beautiful. So this album peaked at number 4 on the Billboard 200 album charts, and it won 3 Grammys. So it won Album of the Year, Producer of the Year. Toto is a self-produced group. They arrange and produce their own music. And the Record of the Year was Rosanna. And this album had international success. It was 4 times platinum in the United States, 2 times platinum in Canada, UK Gold, in Australia, 2 times platinum. And I will show you the record. It's also on the Columbia label. So I bought this album because of Africa. Africa is my favorite song. And I always wondered why it's the last track on the album. And it's because they had the album mostly complete and they just needed one more song. And David Paich, who's the writer and keyboard player, he had gotten a new Yamaha keyboard and he had been experimenting with the sounds, and he came up with the melody and had some of the verses, including the chorus. So he presented this to the band, and they were kind of unsure about it because it didn't really fit the rest of the album. But they began to work on it, and Jeff Porcaro added the drums and the drum sounds, and he's credited with the writing because he composed all the drumming in this song. And Steve Porcaro thought, this song isn't going to really do well. It won't amount to anything. It just doesn't fit the record. However, it became their number 1 song in their whole catalog. It stayed at number 1 for just 1 week, which is really sad. Guess which song bumped it out of the number 1 spot? Well, it was Down Under by Men at Work. That's why I showed them together in this video. And Africa has stood the test of time. It has been covered by Weezer in 2018 on their album, and it reached number 1 again, and it has millions of streams on Spotify and YouTube, and it really is my favorite song on this album and one of my favorite songs of the decade, the entire decade. Another fact is the members of Toto were working on Thriller by Michael Jackson. So they were doing many things by this album, and it delayed the release of the album. So those are the records for today. Please share your thoughts and memories of these great records. And I thank you for watching. And I'll have more 80s records to show you in the near future. Take care.